Different organisms adapt to these abiotic factors in order to grow and survive. Adaptation is not the only method that help organisms to survive, but also the physical traits that organisms inherit from their parents help them to survive. Let's find out more through our first activity, Analyze Like a Scientist. The activity title is Inheritance of Traits in Living Organisms. In this activity, we are going to gather information from multiple sources about the effects of inherited traits in different species, then communicate their understanding orally to their peers. Most of the hereditary traits of living organisms, whether animals, humans, or plants, are inherited from their parents. And when these hereditary traits are transmitted, everything is determined, such as eye color and nose shape. These inherited traits in plants determine the types of leaves that will grow on a tree or the color of the fruit. That's why all generations keep the same traits over time. To learn more about the inherited traits in living organisms, let's check the activity on our textbook. What are the traits living organisms inherit from their parents, and how these inherited traits help them to adapt and survive? To answer these questions, we are going to read the text, observe the images, and use our own experience to identify the inherited traits of a cat and plant species that can be observed. Now, take your time to read the text. When we come back, we will discuss together. Did you observe that there are two different breeds of cats? Different types of domestic cats or Felis cats. Let's have a closer look at the details. As you see, the Sphinx cat does not have any hair or may have only fine hair, while the Burman cat has long, silky hair with varying colors. Also, I can see a difference in the eye shape. The Sphinx cat has a bigger eye shape than the Burman cat. And you can look to the ears. Their ears are so different in shape. It feels like a cone, this ear, and it's bigger and deeper from inside, while the Burman cat has the normal ears of cats, of the domestic cats that we normally see. And can you observe the skull shape? The shape of the face of the Sphinx cat is so narrow and thin from the sides, while the Burman cat has a wider shape of the skull. So both of them are from the same species, but they have so different traits. These characteristics of each species are passed on from parents to offspring. Offspring refers to a new organism that is the product of reproduction, or the latter ones of the same species. So, what are the traits that a plant inherits? And how do they help it to grow? We often notice trees, palms, bushes, and plants that differ in height, color, and flower shape. These differences and variations in plants happen because of the different environments, ecosystems, and soil where they grow. For example, some desert plants have long, deep roots in the soil to reach to the groundwater. They need to grow. To find out more, let's have a closer look at the images we have right here. This is the picture of some plants in the desert. What are the typical traits of these plants? that make them adapt to difficult environmental pressure of extreme sun exposure and very little rainfall. I can see that they have a very narrow leaves besides the long roots that reach down to the soil to gather as much as the plant can from the groundwater. And these narrow leaves help it to stop the transpiration process. Do you remember what was the transpiration process? Which was the evaporation of water from the plants. So this helps the plant to keep more water inside it so it can adapt to the extreme harsh conditions of the desert where a very little water are there. Scientists conducted a study of 32 species of plants that grow in extremely arid Atacama Desert in South America. What did the research lead them to? Scientists have discovered that these plants, over time, adapt to the harsh weather conditions. This is one of the inherited traits that is passed from the cells of the parent plants to the seed that becomes a new plant. It is as if the plant inherits the way it can adapt to the environment to ensure its survival. After getting much information from reading the text and observing the images, it's time to identify inherited traits that cats and plants inherit from their parents. Record your ideas in the table. This table. After the break, we will discuss the answers together. Let me share my thoughts with you. I thought that the physical traits and characteristics that cats inherit from their parents are length of hair, fur color, coat pattern, texture of fur, eye color, shape of ears. And as for the plants in the desert, I recorded plant height, flower color, leaf shape, leaf color, leaf pattern, location of flower. Now, we understand the role that inherited traits play when they are transmitted to the future generations of the same species to adapt within the ecosystem and survive. So, we have a very important learning evidence, which is inherited traits determine the shape of plants and animals in the same ecosystem. Okay. Are the general characteristics that distinguish a person, such as height, body shape, facial features, skin color, and other physical features that a person inherits and passes on to the following generations, happen in other beings? Since man is one of the living organisms living on Earth, he is like any living creature that grows and develops and must be affected by the factors inherited from parents and grandparents.
تقدر تتابع كل دروسك على تطبيق مدرستنا بلس. مدرستنا، المستقبل يبدأ الآن.